Okay, so today we're going to be working in section 9.4, and this section is going to be to multiply and divide rational expressions. Now, in order to be good at this, you have to remember how to factor. So if you don't, if your factoring is kind of iffy, maybe review some of your old notes or hop on Khan Academy and look up some factoring. I think it'll come back to you pretty quick. Just don't forget, you want to check for a GCF first. This one does not have a greatest common factor, so this is a trinomial with an a coefficient of 1, so we can just X method this. So we're trying to figure out what multiplies to make -4 but adds to make 3, so I can do 4 and -1. So this becomes x plus 4 times x minus 1. Obviously, you could have written x minus 1 times x plus 4. Just flip those parentheses, but the signs would have to be exactly like this, okay? On number 2, there is a GCF. They have a 6 in common, so I'm going to pull that 6 out front. When I do that, it's what's left. So that's an x squared. The back part's a little tricky. You pull a 6 out, the only thing that's left is a 1, okay? Now, once you get the GCF out, you have to ask yourself, does the inside break down? And the answer to that is no. This is a sum of two perfect squares, and we only have a factor form for the difference of two perfect squares. So that would be it for that one. And then on this one, it's a trinomial, no GCF, trinomial with an a coefficient bigger than 1. So I'm going to use bubbles. So my signs are plus, minus. I'm looking for a difference of 7. So if you remember, how do we make 6? 1 and 6, 2 and 3. How do we make 3? 1 and 3. So we're looking for a difference of 7. Difference of 7. So that'd be 1 and 18. Nope. 6 minus 3. Nope. Right here, 2 and 9 make a difference of 7. Okay. Now we're trying to make positive 7 right there. So that tells me my 9's got to be the plus and my 2's got to be my minus. Remember, we just transfer these to the back signs. So we have a 2x and a 3x in the front. And then 2 is connected to -1. Now remember, your front connects to your back and your middle to your middle. Okay, you can always quickly multiply that back out just to make sure it's right. This is 9x, that's -2x, so I know that's going to create positive 7x, and you can multiply the front and the back if you need to. Okay, hopefully our factoring is super strong by now. I know we've worked on that a lot this year and in Algebra 1. Okay, so now we're going to kind of get into today's topic. So a rational expression is in simplified form, or simplest form, when the numerator and denominator have no common factors other than 1. So in order to simplify, we're going to factor the numerator and denominator. And then we're going to simplify any common, I don't know why I put simplify any common terms. Okay, so first things first here, we've got a numerator and a denominator. So this factors by the X method. So it's going to be -6 and positive 1. So x minus 6, x plus 1. Now you got to be careful. This down here is the difference of two squares. And if you remember that pattern, one gets a plus, one gets a minus. What's the square root of x squared? That's x. What's the square root of 1? That's a 1. So we factor the numerator, we factor the denominator. Now we want to cross out or simplify any common terms, because anything divided by itself is 1, okay? So right here, we see an x plus 1 on the top, we see an x plus 1 on the bottom. Those are going to simplify. Final answer, x minus 6 over x minus 1. You can leave the parentheses if you want. Now, a very, very common mistake is right here. People want to cross out those x's, but you cannot cancel anything. It's not really canceling, it's simplifying to 1. You can't do that. unless it's attached by multiplication. So like this parenthesis was attached to that parenthesis by multiplication. So I can simplify those, okay? This is your final answer. Please don't get in the habit of thinking you can take those x's away. This isn't x divided by x. It is x minus 6 divided by x minus 1, and those two quantities do not simplify. Okay, example 2, I see 3 terms. I go, okay, this is the x method. Multiply to -2, add to 1. So I get a 2 and a -1. So x plus 2 times x minus 1. You'll notice the bottom, excuse me, is the same difference of squares as the one before. So this is just x plus 1, x minus 1. Does anything simplify? Well, right there, those lined up really nice. And final answer is x plus 2 over x plus 1. So that is when it just says simplify. You're gonna factor the top, factor the bottom, and then simplify, okay? Next, we're gonna get into multiply, all right? Now these, you have a couple options. I usually draw my 2 fraction bars and kind of call my 4 spots, but none of these spots are gonna factor in and of themselves, okay? This isn't like a trinomial or a binomial. This is just big monomials. And you have a couple options. You can do like cross reducing. I kind of advise against that. I've just seen people make more mistakes that way. So when you multiply fractions, don't forget, like if I was doing 1/3 times 2/5, I would just multiply straight across and then simplify if I needed to. So same thing here. I'm just gonna go straight across on this one. 6 times 10 is 60. X squared times x cubed is x to the 5th. Y cubed times y to the 4th is y to the 7th. Then I'm gonna multiply the bottom. We get 36 x squared y to the 4th. Then I'm gonna go ahead and simplify this, okay? Obviously, you could throw 60 over 36 into a calculator and have it simplify you, or hopefully we know that 12 goes into both of those, so that's gonna be a 5 and a 3. We've done simplifying these a lot of ways. You could use your division rule with the same base, keep the base, subtract the exponents, or what we like to do a lot when we got to these, we're top heavy or bottom heavy. So on these x's, would you consider them top heavy or bottom heavy? Are there more on the top or more on the bottom? Well, there's definitely more on the top, and then you ask yourself, how many more? There are 3 more. Okay, y is top heavy or bottom heavy? Also top heavy. How many more? Also 3. So this is your final simplified answer for example 5. Now, pay attention because 4 is very different. Again, these were all monomials. That's why I just multiplied straight across, okay? If you look at number 4, they are not. I only have 1 monomial, and that's down in this corner. So I kind of call this the 4 corners. So what I like to do is draw my fraction bars. Anything that doesn't factor, or maybe it's already factored, I'm just gonna go ahead and write that down, okay? Then I'm going to go through each piece and factor it. So this top piece right here, it's 2 terms. It has a GCF of 2x. So if I take a 2x away from here, I'm left with a 2 minus 2x away from here, I'm left with an x. So I'm going to write this as 2x times 2 minus x. These problems take a little bit, especially when you get down to these, okay? This is a trinomial with an a coefficient of 1. So I'm trying to multiply to make positive 3, but add to make negative 4. The only 2 ways to multiply and make positive 3 are 1 times 3 and negative 1 times negative 3. So this is going to be x minus 1 times x minus 3. And then same thing, this bottom left one is also an x method problem. Multiply to make 6, add to make negative 5. Be careful with these. A lot of times people want to do a 6 and a negative 1, but then that would make like this, or a negative 6 and a 1, but that would make this 6 negative. So this one has to be negative 3, negative 2. So this is x minus 3 times x minus 2. All right, you got to be careful at this point. I always say check your up downs. So that would be here, here, and check your crisscross, okay? So if I check my up downs, I'm looking for things that can divide and make 1, okay? So is there anything that matches? Well, right here, Doesn't quite match, but it is oh so close, okay? These are called opposites. So if you have opposites, they don't divide to make +1. They're going to divide to make -1. So I'm just going to put a big negative in the front of my answer. And I like to kind of squiggle these instead of crossing them out. Or you could even highlight them because those were opposites. So they didn't divide. Like if I did 5 divided by 5, that's going to give me 1. But if I do 5 divided by -5, that's going to give me -1. Okay, check this up, down. Nothing simplifies there. So now let's check our crisscrosses. So on this crisscross right here, there's 2x divided by 2x. That's 1. So I'm getting rid of those. On the other crisscross, we have x minus 3 divided by x minus 3. Getting rid of those. Just be really careful then when you go across to get your final answer. The only thing not crossed out on the top is this x minus 1 in parentheses. Everything on the bottom is crossed out now. So if everything gets crossed out, I'm just going to put a 1 there. And then to simplify this, I would just distribute that negative. So we get, sorry for coughing, negative x plus 1. And you guys can always rewind if you need more time too, okay? Sorry, I'm coughing so much, I don't have any water. Okay. This next one is also multiplication. It looks a little weird because this doesn't have a denominator, so we're just going to make that 1. You can always check this, obviously, for bubbles. So again, let's draw my 4 corners. Whoop, that was crooked, sorry. This is not going to break down anymore, and that's not going to break down anymore, so I'm looking pretty good there. This right here, some of us were on the struggle bus. This is sum of 2 cubes. So if you were not very good with that pattern, like a cubed plus b cubed, what does that become? It becomes a plus b times, think about if you remember this, it's going to be a squared minus, do you remember what comes next? AB, and then plus b squared. That is this pattern, okay? So for this spot right here, if you had 27, so 27 is 3 cubed, and then x cubed, right? And then this 8 is 2 cubed. So this is going to be 3x plus 2. Then you square the front. 3x times 3x is 9x squared. Subtract the product of 3x and 2, so minus 6x, and then square the back, plus 4. So if you notice, when you go to write this down, and I would always pay attention to this, you're going to see on this crisscross up here, you're going to see a perfect match. So this trinomial and this trinomial match perfectly. That means they divide to make 1. Up, down doesn't cancel. There's no more crisscross, it cancels. So I multiply straight across. I get x plus 2 over 3x plus 2. Remember, nothing, like those 2's cannot cross out. They are not attached by multiplication. So that should be your final answer. Okay, the end of this lesson is going to be not bad because it's division. So if you remember to divide one rational expression by another, so even when we divide fractions, remember the KFC? So you're going to multiply the first expression by the reciprocal of the second. So just a quick example, if we had 1/2 divided by 3/8, this would become KFC, right? So this would become 8/6, which would be 4/3. So you keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, and make sure you multiply. So I'm going to set up 4 corners. I cannot forget that these are going to flip. I mean, people do forget that when they're trying to flip them and factor them. So just be really careful about that. 3 does not break down anymore, so I'm going to bring that down. 4x minus 8 just has a GCF of 4, so it's going to be 4 times x minus 2. Whoops. Now, these have to flip and factor. So I'm going to take the top. I know an x is coming out. I'm left with x plus 3. That's going on the bottom down here. And then this one, how do we multiply to make -6, but add to make 1? That's going to be 3 and -2. So x plus 3 times x minus 2. Now, this becomes exactly the multiplication problem. So it's not like it's anything new. So you're going to check your up downs. Does anything make 1 there? No. Does anything make 1 here? Yes. The x plus 3's do. And then you're going to check your crisscrosses. So 3 and x? No. How about 4 times x minus 2 and x minus 2? Yes, on the x minus 2's. Multiply straight across. We get 3 over 4x. That is my final answer. All right, this is getting pretty long, so I'm just going to do 8 and 10, and maybe you can try 9 on your own, and we can always go over that if we need to, okay? So I'm going to draw my 4 corners. This is over 1, so I'm going to go ahead and flip that because neither one of those factor, and then this doesn't factor either. So really, this one, we only have to factor this trinomial. I'm going to rewrite this so you can see it better. Now, you do have to use the bubble method or guess and check. So this is going to be a plus minus, and we're looking for a difference of 7. So we have 1 and 6, 2 and 3, 1 and 3. I'm trying to write a little bigger so you can see those. So difference of 7. I think we did this one early. This is a 2. That's a 9. We're looking for positive 7. So yeah, we actually did this exact one. So you would get 2x, 3x. The 2x is hooked to the -1. Remember, front hooks to back. Whoops, sorry. And middle hooks to middle. So 3x is hooked to plus 3. So that goes right here. 2x plus 3 and 3x minus 1. Okay, I'm going to check up to down. Nothing, nothing. I'm going to check my crisscrosses. Really, the only thing that crosses out to make 1 is the 3x minus 1s. Then you're going to multiply straight across. So 2x plus 3 over x minus 1. Okay, I do want to go over this last one because if you see it has multiplication and then it has division. Okay, so this isn't just going to have 4 corners, it's going to have 6. And I'm going to go ahead and take care of this last fraction first because I know I have to flip it over. The x minus 2 doesn't factor, so that's pretty simple. But this 4x squared minus 9 is the difference between 2 squareds. So this becomes 2x plus 3 times 2x minus 3. And that does have to go on the bottom. Okay, this one can stay because that was multiplication. This can stay. And all the rest of them, there's nothing you can do to factor them. Now, what's cool about this is I can do a crisscross like from here to here if I want to, like from here all the way down to here, okay? Or the other way. So here you see an x minus 2 on the top and an x minus 2 on the bottom. Just make sure one is on the top and one is on the bottom. Sometimes they'll both be on the top or they'll both be on the bottom if people want to cross those out, and you can't do that, okay? Then right here I have a 2x plus 3 and a 2x plus 3. So then all I have left all the way across the top is an x. And on the bottom I have a 1 times 2x minus 3. So I'm just going to write that as 2x minus 3. Okay, I will post your homework. Just make sure that you're really keeping up with things this week. Let me know if you have questions. I can work out homework problems on video and send those to you as well.